Right.
This is so
Right, that
whatever.
was awesome. All right, so don't forget about that. Kane Hodder, he's
We'll
got the
be
book.
in jail on
He'll
Friday.
be in jail. He's got the book Unmasked.
He's gonna
Check
jail.
that out on Amazon. I'm sure Nate's going to order that as soon as we get home. Also got that.
What do you mean?
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so don't forget about that. Kane Hodder,
We'll be in jail on Friday the 30th.
I'm sorry. He's got the book Unmasked.
He's gonna
Check
bail
that
him.
out on Amazon. I'm sure Nate's going to order that as soon as we get home. Also got that movie coming out called Smothered with John Schneider producing. So.
Smothered!
That's like motorboating.
Yeah, I think that's popular right there. But check him out also on KaneHodderKills.com. Everybody do that.
Good
Last
stuff.
gasp of
Good
air.
stuff.
So back to Dr. Lynch. Here.
Oh, yeah. Let's,
Actually,
Oh, man.
Nathan has some questions for you.
Jason ever carry a chainsaw? That's what I want to know.
Okay, yeah, I've got a question from our neighbor.
Yeah.
Or your neighbor.
She's my neighbor, Heather Claxton.
Does she wear...
Oh,
Devout,
I've seen her on your Facebook.
devout listener of the show.
Yeah, she is.
Devout listener of the show!
Future disciple of Dr. Lynch.
I says
You are healed.
she is a devout disciple of the brothers of whatever right here on the show.
What?
I feel like I need to get...
Woo, baby.
Wow.
We need to
some
go
money
to
now.
church.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's all be in a state of silence for this question.
Wow.
She is with the After Dark Paranormal. Okay, so this is right up your alley. She would like to know, first off, this
She's
is
with the After Dark Paranormals.
There's 3 questions here.
Yes.
What is your opinion on orbs? Are they supernatural in nature?
Hit me again. Supernatural. We have to define what supernatural is. It is not supernatural as if you're like in the 20th century, they'd be declared as supernatural. If you're in the 21st century, they're natural. They're a natural state of consciousness outside the human
Nice.
body.
Wow.
They're a totally different paradigm now. We're not going from the Swiss wind-ups anymore. We're going to state-of-the-art digital. So that's the way we're going
God,
with
he's- oh my
paranormal.
God.
So last 20th century, they were supernatural
Stop
beings
breathing
from
heavy.
the
Johnny's
afterlife.
breathing heavy.
Oh, I know.
about
You're
this.
the man that never says I don't know.
And in the 21st century, they are consciousness outside the normal parameters of the human body.
You have me gasping for air, Dr. Lynch. That's so
I hope that's
phenomenal.
I do declare it's getting warm in here.
That's amazing.
Part
answer.
2 of that question.
Part 2 of that question
That's
from
right.
the After Dark's Paranormals.
I'm gonna have to get.
Amen.
We're going to get baptized tonight.
Paycheck here.
She is a disciple.
Oh,
What if they appear as different colors with unique aspects to them? Does this make them credible?
I think I know the answer.
What's the answer? What's the answer for $10,000,
Okay, are-
Mary? You can answer in the next 30 seconds. What will it be?
Are you talking about in the
What will it
photograph?
be?
I'm not asking
Somebody
questions,
captured
so I
in
don't
a
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In a photograph or even with your eyes.
Yeah.
Now, you and I talked about this a long time ago, I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember it.
Yeah.
In my own experience and in my line of study, because I started seeing stuff like that.
As a disciple of orbs.
As a disciple, I did. No, not as that. Anyway, so I've seen colored orbs, right?
Right,
Where you see orbs that are clear, more whitish in photographs and things like that. In my experience, the color are more divine and angelic in nature.
Well,
there we go.
okay. Yes, undoubtedly. But let me just take a look. I brought an example here for the radio audience.
Oh wow.
And I will show you this example. Now, if I take this example, which is a piece of glass, and it's you can use a glass.
It's actually a Miller 64. Okay, folks.
They do not sponsor this show or anything about this show.
Oh,
Can I say-
Still
Bang!
Bleep
You
me out.
lost.
Bleep me out.
If you take a picture of a glass, it can be a glass bulb or any glass, it will create a spectrum. And that spectrum is created by the flash. The flash is putting out all of the generic white light the human eye technically needs. The problem with this is that the camera designed in your cell phones and your digital cameras and all that stuff, your video cameras, your silicon chip could only see so much. So what is happening is that we're throwing 7 colors at this glass. This glass is going to reflect all those 7 colors back to the silicon chip. The silicon chip is going to record those colors. And every time I'm taking a picture of this, if I just move this, you know, because of my lighting source, just a little bit here and a little bit there, it's going to change the prismatic effect of the object. So the colors are going to change. So I'm going to sit there going, well, if I set it over here, I get a green and blue. But if I sit over here, I get a red and yellow.
But what if we're not taking a picture of a bottle? What if it's just floating around?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what is happening is that an orb, if you take an orb, the light is going into the orb. It's actually, there's several different layers to an orb. It's like an onion, several different layers. The light's going in, bouncing around, and then it comes back toward the silicon chip.
Like the bottle.
Right, like exactly like the bottle. That's my example that I brought with me.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
And so the reflection, the refraction of that light back into the silicon chip is what gives us the color spectrum. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean is that the light bouncing back is bouncing back on a solid prismatic form of energy. We call this energy plasma energy. And the reason why it's in different colors is because why? We're throwing different colors at it. So if it comes out a little more red, or the anatomy inside is a little bit different, it's going to come back a little different. So I've had ghosts or orbs that look like they look rusty. They look, you know, red and orange and rusty. I've had others look brilliant white. Okay, so
and that's because of their different layers.
That's because they're different entities.
And
they're different entities.
they're
different
made
layers.
of different.
Yeah, different energy levels.
Okay.
So what happens is just like if I took a picture of this glass, I would have to say, well, has the glass changed? Well, the glass has not changed. The lighting source that refracts off the glass has changed. So if we look at what we think of photonic physics, is that we have to understand that this bottle is designed a certain way. And the light source is changing because the silicon chip is changing to adapt for that light differential. So I can sit there and say, are orbs real and solid? Yes, they are. You know, absolutely. Are they supernatural? Well, they were in the 20th century. In the 21st century, like angels and everything else, they're becoming more normal. That is just the way things are. It's like clouds. You know, it's like clouds. You know, 500 years ago, they were fluffy little cotton balls that floated around the earth, and no one knew what they were. And then they would rain and pee on us, and we would rejoice into the rain and pee of these, you know, fluffy cloud balls, right? Well, we now know they're clouds filled with water. Right. So we call them clouds, and we actually have names for different types of clouds. So the difference is that we're now looking at them with the technology to understand really what they are. So what we have done at Lynch Scientific and Paravision is that we have taken away all the 7 colors of light, and we shoot 1 nanometer of one light source at that object. So I don't
have more integrity with what you're shooting.
Exactly.
And what comes back at you.
Exactly. So if I send out one thing, it's going to come back as one thing.
Right.
There can't be
so you can more
7 other
clearly
colors.
identify.
Right.
Wow.
Bingo. So I can clearly identify what's going on. So then what I do, I drop it into, I'm not going to say Photoshop, but I'm going to throw it into a photo manipulator. And all I'm doing is adjusting the contrast and brightness. I'm not changing anything with the emulsion or the resolution.
But you can more clearly see what you're looking at.
Exactly, and as I change that resolution, I start walking backwards into the object and realizing it's 3 dimensionals. Really? It's 3-dimensional sphere, and that's why we call them orbs. And Dave Oyster, that's his real name, Dave Oyster, was a photographer back in the day.
Sounds made
and
up.
I know that I'm that old. So if you ever look it up, type in Dave Oyster and ghostweb or something.com, and he coined the term orb. Coming from the term of these globes that fit around, or these orbs, glass that fit around these ceiling fan type things. And he coined that term, and it has stuck. And I use the term as orb and or as bubbles or whatever. And they all have the same anatomy. They all have a central matrix. They're all designed the same way. And if you see them in video, you'll come to the realization these things are solid real.
So my
There's
question is
absolutely
then,
no
if you're
variation.
saying that the reason why some of these colors bounce back to you, and that's what you're getting, right?
Yeah, because they have to
It's
come back
because
into the
of
camera.
the different layers that these orbs are made of.
Exactly.
So then, is what I said correct?
Yeah, absolutely, because
Like how do you-
the other thing is that an orb as consciousness is constantly moving, is a constantly swirling and adapting and changing. So so you take a picture of it. You can take 20,000 pictures a second of this thing, and you're going to have a different. It's going to be moving, and so it's going to be constantly moving, and that's why it's going to be changing. And that's why people get similar pictures, but they don't get all the pictures. They don't get it quite right each time. That's because they're constantly, even angels are moving.
Yeah.
So colored orbs are or not never spirits. Like, are they spirits
They're-
sometimes too?
They're consciousness. They're not necessarily technically spirits.
Okay.
They're consciousness. Now, a spirit. Well, then you see, you're getting back into the religion of the 20th century or the 1st century. A spirit versus something else.
It's hard to get away
It's
from those terms.
Yeah, if you're talking like angelic spirit, then we can call that a spirit. But we can't call it a spirit if it's an orb, because that's just consciousness. That is one singular consciousness. It's like
Which
this.
could be human or angelic.
It could be whatever it wants to be. It could be an extraterrestrial. It could be a dog. It could be a cat. It could be any mammal.
Can you
known.
tell the difference if you're studying these orbs? Is it a dog orb?
No, we have to ask. We have to ask another orb, what is that orb? And then they'll tell us what that is.
Wow.
Wait, how do you know
Man,
what,
you
how do you know
broke
what orb
this
to ask?
down, man.
Well, because we have guides. We have
Yeah.
guides, which are spiritual guides, which are consciousness, that have no body,
That are feeding you information?
that will feed us information, and we'll ask them to ask it what it is, and then they'll say.
So
"This
if you
is
want to
what it
know
is."
They
more
say it.
about this, ask an orb.
They say
Yeah, exactly. You have to ask
They
somebody.
say it
that-
in words, they say it telepathically to you, how do they
If
say
we're
it?
dealing with a psychic, they'll tell it telepathically. And then that's how we know it's consciousness. If we do it any other way, we can douse it. And we can,
Excuse me,
first-
Dr.
No.
Lynch,
Can douse.
did you live like, you're talking about centuries, did you live on our planet growing up?
I hope
Wait,
not.
did-
I hope I don't die on this
Dr.
planet
Lynch, when
either.
you were going to school, did you ever say an orb ate your homework?
I did, but that'd be a great
It was an
t-shirt.
orb dog,
That
a dog orb.
That's a great t-shirt. I did do this investigation, and I
When did you get started, really? I
Oh,
want to know, you're different.
early.
How did you get into this?
Well, actually, I got started when I was around 16,
Okay.
chasing UFOs. That's how it all got
Chasing-
started. I was probably younger than that.
Chasing hoes?
Yeah, chasing hoes.
Chasing hoes in UFOs.
UFOs.
He was after Ho Alienettes.
I'm sorry, I just see women light up when he talks about all this.
Well, you don't have to chase
Oh,
them now.
my
They just
gosh.
flock to
Yeah,
you.
they just flock.
Oh my God.
So when I was probably 15. I was young enough to where my next door neighbor drove his car, and I rode with him to chase unidentified flying objects, and that's kind of what got us started. And then back in the
Were you chasing with your Superman cape
No.
and you just flew after them?
We did have a red car, though. When I got 16, I could drive, and I had a red car. But the whole thing is that back in the 90s, I guess the 90s, the X-Files kind of started and kind of had a couple of years in the X-Files, and we came across a theorem. We had written a theorem, a friend and I, and we, at that time, infrared LED illuminators just came out. And the Russian wall came down, and a lot of technology started flooding the marketplace for those who could pick it up. So we had a spook. We have a friend in the military industrial complex, and he says, you know, these infrared illuminators just came out. Here, I'll slip you a catalog, and you can order them directly from the manufacturer. Well, suddenly, thank you. Suddenly, all this military-grade stuff starts flooding into the commercial market. Now, no one really knows what it's for. But then we start realizing, like, oh yeah, this is what we can do. So we virtually started out with the equipment we had and started whittling down the infrared nanometer range that we went into. And we actually went from 720 nanometers all the way into 880 and a little bit higher, 920, into a range that is totally invisible to the human eye. And then we reached these certain ranges, and we would crank up the power, and as soon as we did that, we started seeing this stuff. Wow. And so in 2000, we were the Unitarian Church in the McPike Mansion, and that's why I know they're haunted. From 2000 to now, we have it where it slips into a holster. I whip it out like a 6-shooter, and I'm shooting ghosts. And it's
We're talking
With
about.
what? What's it do to them? What's it do to them?
with my equipment.
Oh,
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
What's your
With your
I
son
think
and
they thought you were
equipment.
talking about something
Whipping
else.
out his equipment.
I wonder
He
too.
was asleep there.
Man,
It is big when I whip it out.
very
impressive.
I told you.
It's very impressive.
Whoa, whoa,
See,
whoa.
that's what these guys in Hollywood don't understand.
But what are you shooting them with? Besides your equipment, where are you? But I mean, like,
See, okay, I want a man and a woman.
Yeah.
No,
No.
no, I'm shooting with an infrared light set at a certain nanometer and power range.
so that you can see them better.
Right. What happens is the nanometer light, just like your flash, just like a flashlight, a flash on a camera, the nanometer light goes out in 1 nanometer, only one wavelength of light.
Only one, everybody.
Only
Don't
one.
ever say he said 2. He's
That's
1
right.
nanometer.
And it comes back in that wavelength, and then we see it, and we can see it.
Oh.
So we have military-grade infrared equipment,
What?
and we built it all ourselves so we can, walk around with it.
Military grade ghost hunting equipment.
Yeah, if you put it up to your
That's
arms, it's so sensitive. You can pull it up to your arms, and you'll see the veins in your arm because the heat registration. Now it's not heat sensitive, but it's infrared sensitive. So
Do you have one here?
Oh, I didn't bring one. He just said throw the camera in the car and run over here.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, yeah, man.
So I'll be giving a lecture in Mineral Springs, in Alton, Illinois,
Yeah,
on the 21st of
let's go
September.
for that.
All right.
21st
Show
of September.
What
and
time?
From 1 to 5 p.m. There'll be 5
Oh
lectures.
my God.
What
I
time,
only
Donny?
want to
It's-
know your lecture. I
I
don't
do
want to
not
hear
know.
about these
I-
other
I went
imposters.
by
I want you.
Yeah.
the Paranormal Research Center down there, and they were all closed up. They closed at 5. I got there at 5 minutes till 5, and they were
They
closed.
were-
Mineral
Workout or
Springs, what is it called again? Mineral Springs what?
Hotel, Mineral Springs Hotel,
Yeah, I actually-
or mall.
I actually was
In
going to rent an
Alton.
apartment there. And
Don't do it, Nathan.
well, no, on the way out
Yeah,
the door,
really.
I saw
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this
yeah.
ghost stuff, and I went
Yeah.
back into the landlord, and I was
The
like,
basement's
"Is
all-
this place
Yeah.
some kind of haunted?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh man."
Wait, what'd you see?
I didn't see nothing. I just saw
Just saw
pamphlets.
pamphlets.
I saw
Oh.
pamphlets
Yeah.
that said it was haunted, and there was a
says it is haunted.
there's a medieval torture device museum there.
Oh, Jesus!
chains, dogs and cats living
Okay, so you're
Speaking
gonna
of torture
It's
device,
abomination.
Dr. Lynch,
you're gonna be there the
Witchy.
21st. I don't want people to forget this. So
September 21st, 2013, Mineral Springs Mall, or Antique Mall.
From 1 to 5.
And that's in
hotel.
Alton?
It's in
From
Alton,
1 to
Illinois,
5.
from 1 to 5 p.m.
Wow.
woo
Yeah.
woo, y'all
So
want to see
eat-
him and his equipment.
So
Yeah.
and then my presentation.
Oh.
I don't know when I'm scheduled. It's going to be 5 lectures. They all have an hour or 45 minutes. So I
That'd
said,
be
well,
awesome.
I'll do about
It'll
an
be
hour.
fantastic.
And so the difference now is, it's not, hey, we're going to go ghost hunting because we give up bowling. Now it's like we're in the 21st century. This is an avid science, a repeatable avid science, and it should not be declared as all the other voodoo rituals like pool, playing pool or bowling. So it's more than
Wow!
It's
All
more
right,
than
Big
just a
Brothers,
hobby.
and whatever, officially takes a stand against bowling
We're
as
bowling.
voodoo.
Wait a minute. If we're bowling, we're occultists.
Yes.
No, it's not just a hobby anymore. It's
Yeah, it's not a
science.
hobby.
It's real
Oh,
science.
okay,
It's
sorry.
actual science.
Isn't that true, brothers? We started the show. We
Right.
decided to take a stand against
Speaking
bowling.
of
What
cue
was the-
balls,
Guys,
Dr.
we-
Lynch.
Yeah.
Speaking of cue balls,
I
when
didn't
are you
see-
going to take over that Dave Glover show?
I don't-
There we go.
Yeah,
There we go.
Oh, Dr.
Whatever, dude. Whatever do you mean?